give anybody my ID unless I've committed a crime.
So we can make it real easy or we can make it real hard. Well, all I'm asking is for your ID that I identify who you are in case.
You get a chance to talk to the people upstairs?
Who? Jesus?
No, the people upstairs. They have to give you some type of permit to
start going to church.
Recording in there. Do you have your ID?
Excuse me?
Do you mind if it's your ID?
Let me see your ID.
So do you have your driver's license?
I just want to know what crime I'm committing.
Do you have your driver's license?
Give me your name. Oh, bless your heart. God bless you. See, now the bad thing is for you, unfortunately for you, is I know my rights and I know the law, and I know I'm not breaking the law.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for having me, Connor. Hi, nice to meet you, sir. So, I'm a 20-year plus police and government accountability activist and lifelong constitutionalist, and I've been studying the police and government for many decades now, and anyone who gives it a good close look watches their behavior versus what is written down in the Constitution. The two things are antithetical to each other. Like your right to privacy, for instance, just to keep it basic, you have a right to keep your person's papers, houses, and effects to be private unless you did something wrong. Well, almost the first thing every cop does when he encounters you is he gives you those brackets and he says, let me see some ID. The thing is they believe that that's just normal, that's routine, that has become de facto, when in fact what that is, when a cop says to you, let me see some ID, and you haven't done anything wrong, what he's literally saying to you is, please surrender your right to privacy that you are guaranteed under the Fourth Amendment. Please surrender that to me because I asked you to do it. And if you don't do it, the overwhelming majority of cops from coast to coast, video after video, thousands of videos, they get angry, they push, they coerce, they lie, and then sometimes they even get violent just for the fact that you won't hand over your little plastic card, even when you're not supposed to. And that's just one example of many. I mean, I don't know how long I can go. I can go, 8 minutes of, I could just give example after example like that, for instance. Or the fact that, somebody that knows the law or starts talking about constitutional rights, again, video after video, coast to coast, from department to department. Someone starts talking about their constitutional rights, cops get angry. They start calling them sovereign citizens. They immediately need backup. If they were trained to follow the Constitution, they'd be like, oh, we're good, man. Hey, call off those units. We're good. This guy knows his stuff. He's a constitutionalist just like we are. We swore to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. This guy gets it. We're good. We have a real American here. But instead, it's the exact opposite. Once someone starts talking about their rights and exercising their constitutional rights, it pisses the police off to no end. And if they're not trained to get upset by someone exercising their rights they swore to preserve, protect, and defend, if they're not trained to get upset, then why do they get upset? If they were trained to preserve and protect and defend the Constitution like they swore to do, they would be so happy when somebody said, no, thank you, I don't want to ID, or no, sir, I don't want you searching my car, or come back with a warrant. That would make a police officer proud if an American said, come back with a warrant. Instead, it's the exact opposite, and it's because they're trained to circumvent and get around people's constitutional rights, either through threat, duress, or coercion, one way or another. Fantasy football.
I muted myself. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. And Connor, to you, please.
Yeah. So can you guys hear me okay, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So watching behavior versus what's written down. I mean, I could probably agree to that. So for instance, I was told in the academy during my training that Americans, well, the thing that makes our country great is the Constitution of the United States, and the fact that if you don't commit crimes, then law enforcement officers should not be able to stop you, detain you, question you, whatever. That was in my training. So that's kind of where, I would cite that as a counterexample to the thesis. However, I will admit that there are dickhead cops who are out there who push the boundaries, push the boundaries, push the boundaries. But the training, once again, is that we have consensual encounters, meaning that if you have not committed a crime and we just ask you for your ID and you tell us to go F ourselves, then we have to go F ourselves. As a matter of fact, you're saying that you can show video after video after video of cops getting pissed off because they're being told to F themselves during a consensual encounter. I would say that during consensual encounters, I was told to F off repeatedly. And I was like, okay, nice. Have a nice day. Thank you for talking to me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because we're on body camera now. You think that like cop behavior is bad now? It's probably 90% reduced now that we have body cameras, now that we have cell phone cameras, okay? Also, I'm going to push back a little bit. I'm going to say there's a textualist interpretation of the Constitution, whereas there's actually the legal limits. Okay, every right that's given in the Constitution is not an unlimited right. Okay, it's a limited right. So, for instance, we could read the First Amendment and infer that you cannot be incarcerated for speech whatsoever. Like the Congress shall pass. We have the Supremacy Clause, which says that the Constitution is supreme law of the land. We also have a paper right there that says Congress shall make no laws in reference abridging the freedom of speech. And yet we have laws like assault in the state of Florida, which basically says that if you threaten someone and they're in reasonable fear of like imminent injury or death or battery or whatever, then that's a crime that you can be incarcerated with. Same thing with the Second Amendment. A textualist interpretation of the Second Amendment says that you can have an aircraft carrier or a nuclear bomb. That's not the case in our country, and there's case law from conservative justices like Antonin Scalia that say other than what textualist interpreters of the Constitution do. Please surrender your right to privacy. Okay, when it comes to that stuff, oftentimes when you see cops getting pissed off, it's in reference to a traffic stop or it's in reference to a criminal detention. Okay. And I've had this before where if I've had to litigate it on the side of the road and there was a teenager telling another teenager, you don't have to identify yourself. And I was like, no, you do need to identify yourself because I have the exact description of the suspect and you fit the exact description. And the guy was like, what was the description? And then I repeat it word for word to him. And he's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Here's my ID. But realistically, if his teenager was giving his teenage friend bad advice and they got hyped up with each other that they didn't need to give me the ID, I would be forced to detain them, forced to call backup, forced to arrest them for resisting arrest without violence. All right. And then sovereign citizen versus backup. I would say that if we take a look at it again, I'm sure there's abuse of power. I'm sure there's dirtbag cops. I'm sure there's cops who, for instance, whenever you're filming a public building and you walk up and ask them to identify yourself and the cops are actually out of bounds because filming a public location is not, a crime. I'm sure there's plenty of cops like that. But also, I'm telling you that the amount of people who think that they're not being detained versus the people who actually are detained, they just don't know it yet, is like very divergent. And we'll talk about that during this during this conversation. Also, in reference to vehicles, okay, we have at least several doctrines that are going to judge us. Bear in mind, I was in the police academy 10 years ago. I haven't done law enforcement for 6 years. So if I get something wrong, my apologies. But plain view, if I see you have an alcohol container and there are alcohol ordinances or there are drunk driving laws, I can detain you, okay? If I see your alcohol, if I see your marijuana, if I see your pipe, okay? Mobile conveyance. They've argued that this is a private property, so therefore you shouldn't be able to do anything. Case law after case law after case law after case law has held that a conveyance is a hybrid space. It's simultaneously private and public. So even though it's your private property, you are conducting it in public, and therefore, if you do crimes or traffic infractions, you can be detained. Finally, there's probable cause, which basically states that if I probably think that you committed a crime and I have sufficient evidence to believe that you committed a crime, then I can detain you and probably arrest you and incarcerate you. But that's a lot, so we'll take it from there.
Perfect. Thank you, Connor. And as a kind reminder to the audience, we are going to get through our debate. We will move into closing statements. We will read and respond to your kind super chats. And then, of course, we will open up the panel. So if you have questions or comments to add into this conversation, we will offer you the space to do so. Gentlemen, I leave the floor open to you.
Go for it, John.
Okay. So thousands and thousands of videos, day after day after day, billions and billions and billions of views of the cops violating the Constitution, all repeating the same things from coast to coast. Where are they getting this from?
You're gonna have to go into the specifics, because oftentimes I'm almost guaranteeing you it's
the license thing when someone's not detained. Because I brought up the fact that they try to threaten, duress, and coercion to get a license from you, and the majority of cops get angry when you won't give it to them. And I'm talking about consensual encounters. They just walk up to you and like, there's one thing. How come they do that from coast to coast when, in fact, almost every state you have to have RAS and PC to get a license from someone?
Okay. Well, hold on. So we kind of need to break this down, all right? Mm-hmm. So if you're talking consensual encounter, typically any traffic stop is going to have an inciting violation. And there's so many violations.
Forget traffic stop.
Okay. So you're just talking about somebody's
standing on the sidewalk and someone calls the police on me because they don't like whatever. Cop has to respond because in this day and age, they have to respond for every reason, it seems like. So they respond. He walks up to me. Boom. He does this number. I say, no, thank you. And now we start this circus.
Well, see
thousands and thousands and thousands of videos across YouTube where the cop starts getting mad, starts lying. He starts saying, you have to give it to me. If he'll say, am I being detained? You're not free to go. They'll never answer a direct question. Like, you don't know all these techniques and tactics that police do?
No, I'm sure I do. Okay. But I also think that there's something that we need to talk about, which oftentimes is context. So for instance, like, let's say there was actually a case, I think it was out of California. There was a gentleman who was sitting on a park bench enjoying the sunset or whatever, and he was detained. And then the cop basically forced the issue. And he was like, I'm in a public park. I'm sitting on a bench. I'm not doing drugs. I'm not drinking. I'm enjoying a public space. Why are you detaining me? And the cop was like, you have to give me your ID. And then eventually they beef. And then eventually the guy gets arrested. Well, what ends up happening is, because we have body cameras now, the city ended up having to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars because there was no reasonable, articulable crime that was there. However, typically, when it comes to law enforcement officers, there are, I guess, what you would call like quality of life crimes. So, for instance, trespassing, loitering, and prowling is kind of a vague one. Resisting without violence is a vague one that typically gets dropped by the state attorney. But it's, when in doubt, resisting without, right? So the whole point.
My only arrest in my life was for that garbage. But go on.
I'm sure you weren't. You might not have been guilty of an underlying crime, but you might have been guilty of contempt of cop, right?
I was protesting an unconstitutional Fourth Amendment violating DUI checkpoint. Absolutely, they didn't like it.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So, but I'm sure they hit you with the when in doubt, resisting without. They hit you with resisting without violence, and then it was probably dropped by the state attorney, right?
No, it wasn't dropped. Not even close.
Oh, okay. Well, we could talk about the circumstances of your protest, arrest, and incarceration if you want. But
no, you said it right. They use catch-all terms for when they don't have anything solid or constitutional or want to do actual police work. They do catch-all charges like disorderly and like resisting without violence. You're proving my point for me, but go on.
Well, no, but I mean, these things are things that have survived case law. And as I was saying earlier, there's textualist interpretations, which is effectively you just read the text of the Constitution and you think, oh, we're done now. Like we don't have to analyze anything else. But clearly the way that the Constitution has been interpreted for the past 250 years is we read the Federalist Papers. We read contemporaneous articles written by the people who were crafting the laws.
So
we read other judges who have judged things in the past 250 years.
Which Constitution do the police read? Which version?
I mean, I read the normal one.
How come I'm reading the one I read is completely opposite to what I see them doing in video after video after video.
So let's hit one that I think is obvious, okay? Because I believe this for a really long time. The Second Amendment, right? A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, okay? A textualist interpretation of the Second Amendment that is argued by libertarians all the time is that the clause is separate. So a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, okay? That's one clause. Second clause is the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, all right? So the way that textualists have interpreted that is saying that any restriction on any concept of like firearms and capacity to bear and all that kind of stuff is an infringement upon the Second Amendment itself and therefore is invalid. Okay, that's a textualist interpretation of the Constitution of the United States. That's not the way that law has gone for the past 250 years. What's happened is they've made ordinances, they've made laws, city, county, state, saying that you can only bear weapons in reference to this context, or you can only bear these kinds of weapons.
Those are called infringements.
Okay, but you know what's funny is one of the most conservative justices in American history, Justice Antonin Scalia, said that there's no unlimited rights in the Constitution. Reasonableness is another metric.
Nothing unlimited, but when you're talking about a free country, you're always supposed to go towards freedom in the citizen, not the government, not the police officer, not the judge, and not the politician, who all have case law immunity from the actual sovereigns, the people.
I don't think I think you've got it inverted, buddy. I think every society since the inception of the concept.
Do I have qualified immunity as a citizen, or do police have qualified immunity?
Police have qualified immunity.
So which one of us would be sovereign from the law then?
I don't know how you're using sovereign.
Sovereign is all of us have to do this. The sovereign is above the rest of us. So if I have to follow the laws and the police don't have to follow those same laws, that would make them the sovereign and me below them, because I have to follow the laws and they're sovereign from the laws.
I think I'm saying that.
So you're saying cops are sovereign citizens, judges are sovereign citizens?
No,
they have immunity. Judges have sovereign immunity, and police have qualified immunity.
Can you
thus they're sovereign from the laws the rest of us have to follow?
Yeah. So sovereign, a supreme ruler, especially a monarch. Okay. So
especially,
hold on.
Especially.
Okay. So hold on. So sovereign, a ruler. Okay. English common law arguably roots all the way back into Roman Republican law and Roman imperial law. Okay. And what it says typically is that in a dispute amongst citizens, you do have to defer to the state as like a neutral third party. Now, the sovereign gets, or the king gets, or the Caesar or the emperor or whatever, he gets a higher station within society because he's invested with the power and responsibilities of maintaining civilization.
Well, he has sovereign immunity.
But we do that in democratic societies as well, of course. Like, you don't have the rights or abilities. Like, you can defend yourself, but you don't have arrest powers. Arrest powers are deferred to the courts and law enforcement officers.
Wait, citizens don't have arrest powers?
I'm sure that you have citizens' detention powers or arrest powers, but I'm also sure that they're extremely limited in scope.
Okay, what's that mean? In America,
that means that a law enforcement officer has more sovereignty.
Right, we, the people, are the sovereigns in this country. We, the people, not the cop who has qualified immunity, not the judge who has sovereign immunity, not the politician who has career criminal immunity for their whole life, plus security. The sovereigns are on the the sovereign citizens are on the government side of the fence, yet they have the nerve to call somebody like me, a constitutionalist, a sovereign citizen. Like, everything's backwards in government parasite land.
Well, okay, but what you're saying is this is not how it is, but then you're immediately saying that this is how society is operating. So which is it? Because you're saying that the Constitution is granting you broad authority in order to not have to defer to the state, but then the state is saying, no, you don't. And then you also just said that judges have sovereign immunity, that cops have qualified immunity.
I never said the Constitution grants authority. The Constitution is supposed to restrict the ultimate authority that judges and cops and politicians have now. And it's not
the Constitution puts limits on authority. Okay,
right.
Okay. Now that we've cleared up that little issue.
Yeah.
Okay. You understand that the entirety of the past 250 years of the United States says the opposite of what you're saying, right? And then also you're going with a textualist interpretation.
I keep hearing you say that, but okay. What am I getting wrong? Did I get something wrong?
No, I would say that what you're getting wrong is you need to read Federalist 29 and Federalist 46.
Enlighten me, please.
Okay, so if you look at, I like using the Second Amendment because it's pretty clear, especially from a textualist perspective. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay, if you read Federalist 29 and Federalist 46, it's pretty clear that the founding fathers and whoever wrote 29 and 46, which I think are the only ones that actually address like the Second Amendment or private arms or whatever, they're actually arguing not about people's right to keep and bear arms. They're arguing about whether or not they should even have a standing army. They're saying that the militia is the replacement for the standing army. And so as a result, states should have a limited coterie, a limited cadre of officers that they can appoint and that they can train and this, that, the other. But realistically, who is going to secure the United States of America is a militia, meaning like armed private citizens who are called into service during times of insurrection and during times of war. Okay. Now, within that conversation, though, they're not... They're stating that like private citizens have the right to keep and bear armies, the right to keep and bear arms, but they're contextualizing it almost exclusively within volunteer military service. And so as a result, like our orientation, like self-defense is something that has emanated from American culture as a whole. It has not emanated from like a contextualized understanding of the Second Amendment of the United States.
Okay, I don't know what you're trying to get to with all that.
I'm trying to get to, if you read just the Constitution, then you're not reading enough. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so you're saying I only read the Constitution?
I'm saying that if you haven't read the case law that is developed from the Bill of Rights, then yeah, you probably are you are guilty of reading too narrowly.
Okay, you've heard of the IRS, right?
Of course.
Okay, so you believe you have to pay tax on your labor, right?
Correct.
Okay, I read all of Title 26, Internal Revenue Code. That law does not exist. Does not exist. An American living and working in the United States of America is not required to pay an income tax. The government will come and take your property, SWAT team your house, empty all your bank accounts, close all your businesses down, and completely destroy your life.
Yeah, so aren't you
if
just
you don't
wrong?
Pay that hold on. If you don't pay that income tax, that doesn't even exist.
Okay, so if you're saying this law doesn't exist, and yet we have a constitution stating that government is of, for, and by the people, and then we have these institutions and these organs of government that are working and enforcing their will upon you, and then the broader society is not rebelling against their alleged tyranny, aren't you just a member of a democratic society?
You're defending
Aren't you just a member of a Republican society?
Me?
Yes.
No, I'm a member of whatever the hell you call this, some fascist, socialist, garbage country we've become. This hasn't been a constitutional republic in a long time.
When do you think it was?
Probably the closest? Probably in the 1800s. Maybe early 1900s.
But
after 1913, we're done. Cooked. Once there's a central bank, it's over. Once you have a standing army, like in Minnesota right now, there's a standing army. And to me, the amount of police we have in this country is a standing army, where you risk getting your freedom impeded. To me, if a government employee impedes my freedom for 30 seconds, to me, it's the end of the world. You better have the biggest, baddest, most urgent reason to impede an American's freedom. That's how important it is to me. And people act like it's no big deal to get pulled over on the way to the grocery store.
Yeah.
It is a big deal. Freedom is a big deal. And when everyone's laissez-faire and all flippant about it, and all the cops are great, meanwhile, they're murdering people left and right. 3-4 people a day, the cops are unaliving. We are not a free country. This is all a facade. It's garbage. And I'm on the side of peace and nonviolence and a constitutional republic. And you're on which side?
Yeah, I'm on the side of the actual republic as it functions, not as you kind of like
wish
it
functions
was.
now as the fascist garbage.
What do you think fascism is?
Fascism is corporatism, as the biggest fascist in the world, Mussolini, said. If you want to call it what it really is, it's corporatism, and that's exactly what we have in this country.
Hey, okay, and what did he mean by corporatism? Did he just mean corporations ran society?
Yeah, corporations. All the big heads of corporations are intertwined with government.
Okay, no, that's not what he means by corporatism. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Corporatism is treating the nation state like a body, like a vital organ. Okay, so the economy is the heart, and the military is the skin, and the white blood cells are the cops, and the state is the brain, and all that kind of stuff. That's corporatism. And then fascists are flexibly authoritarian, which effectively means that they will do whatever it takes in order to get, seize, and maintain power. Okay, that is fascism, is political corporatism and flexible authoritarianism. So once again, I would say, like, you're reading, which is great, and I love that you're reading, but you're not reading enough, because believing that this is fascist, you could say it's like authoritarian within like certain realms or whatever. But if you compare it to the authoritarian fascist regimes of Nazi Germany, Franco's Spain, Italy, or even like Pinochet Chile, like we are nowhere fucking near those societies.
Why is that?
Because the dictator can't just walk in and say, hey, fuck you, I want your property, I'm going to kill you and take your shit.
Yes, well, they don't do that here with the IRS?
Do you think there's a difference between you, like, I don't, okay, we'll avoid personal stuff. In Nazi Germany, they dispossessed entire classes of people and say that we do not believe that this is a part of our nation. These are not a part of our people. These are foreign entities. And so as a result,
like the Indian tribe,
detain them, we can ghettoize them, we can liquidate them, and we can seize all of their property. And that's what happened.
Isn't that how America was started?
Yes, started, but the Native Americans were not a part of our national body because they didn't recognize the sovereignty of the Republic of the United States. Do you have an equivalent since like 1776 besides Native Americans where we identified a segment of our society that was not a part of our society, violated their rights, liquidated them, and then seized all their property?
So what? Tell me the
closest thing you're going to have is slavery, and we kind of fought a big war about that one.
So you think so America going all over the world, 190 countries, military bases everywhere,